We're not putting vendors on that. A friend of mine that I've known for a long time.
Hello. Yeah, mine.
Calling commission meeting to order. That's not coming.
Is it on?
It's on. I pushed the button.
Yeah, the wires are there.
Got the wrong one here. Sorry, my problem. I'm used to with this one over here. I'm calling the commission meeting to order. And our invocation tonight and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Garver.
Shall we stand for the benediction? For the invocation. Let's bow our heads. Father, Savior, we come to you with grateful hearts, thanking you for your many, many blessings. We want to thank you for this community and what it stands for and the opportunity we have to serve you as we further the cause of this community. And we pray these things in your name. Amen. Join me in saying the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker? Present. Commissioner Garver?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Vice Mayor Johnson? Mayor Lamb?
Here. You had in your packet the June 7 commission meeting minutes. Are there any corrections that we need to change on those, add to them?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for our minutes. Roll call.
Commissioner Baker? Yay. Commissioner Garver?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yay.
Mayor Lamb?
Yay. Now's the time we have set aside for comments from our citizens and our visitors. We will be having a public hearing for our budget items, so if you want to speak to our budget items on our, and so forth, if you can wait until the public hearing if you wish. So I'm opening up the microphone for comments that you want to share with us. If you approach the microphone, you can please give us your name and your address.
This is the public hearing or not?
This is not the public hearing. This is for the citizens' comments. One item for the individuals that are here in regard to the zoning on Appleton Pike. The public hearing for that one will be on July the 6th, right? July 6th?
Yes.
So if there's something that you wish to share with us tonight, this would be the time for you to share it. Otherwise, you can come back on the July the 6th and speak to the public hearing on that particular item.
Okay.
Seeing no one, we'll go on with our agenda. Our unfinished business is the second reading on 4 different ordinances. And so I'm going to close the commission meeting and open it up for a public hearing. And I'm going to ask our clerk to read the caption on those 4 ordinances that we'll be speaking to.
Ordinance 1093, an ordinance of the City of Collegedale, Tennessee, revising rates for sewer service. Ordinance 1094, an ordinance of the City of Collegedale, Tennessee, amending the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. Ordinance 1095, an ordinance of the City of Collegedale, Tennessee, adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021, and ending June 30, 2022. Ordinance 1096, an ordinance of the City of Collegedale, Tennessee, to provide for the general revenue thereof for the fiscal year 2021-2022 on an interim basis pending receipt of the certified rate from the Assessor of Property of Hamilton County, Tennessee, pursuant to TCA Section 67.5.1701, to be known as the General Revenue Ordinance for said year.
Okay, thank you. And the floor is open for comments for the public hearing. Give us your name and your address.
You know, my name is Sam Shirosh. I live at 4115 Stratton Lane.
Okay.
Thanks for entertaining my questions, and I always have more questions, and I appreciate your willingness to respond to those. I was looking at the budget, as I do every year, and I create more questions for me come up to ask. So one of the questions I have is, I know the previous city manager left, and we gave him a package. Can you tell me where on the budget that is and how much it was?
With our city manager, Mr. Hines.
That's listed in the administration salaries. It was approximately $62,000 off the top of my head for the remainder of the year. It ends through December.
Okay, so I'll come back to that in a minute, but thank you. So there's a couple of things on the budget. One is the fire protection, and I know it only went up 27,000 from last year, but from the year before that, it had gone up now a total of 37%. It used to be 765, it went up to 1,021, and now it's 1,048. How is that determined?
There's an old contract with Tri-Community in the city of Collegedale.
It's
I don't know.
It's based on our population, and I believe last year they raised our contract amount, did they not?
No, that was due to property tax increase.
No, I thought our contract with the Tri-Community also went up slightly.
You're both correct. So it's based off a percentage of property tax essentially, and their ISO rating. So 2 years ago, their ISO rating improved. And so the way the contract was written, I'd have to say 20-ish years ago, that was the bump you saw.
So can it be rewritten?
Can it be rewritten?
Yes.
I'm sure it could be.
Because I mean, I just trying to figure out how come it went up from 765 to 1,000,002 last year?
That's because of property tax.
And ISO, they hit the same
What's the
time.
property tax have to do with it?
Because it's calculated on the property tax or the property, and it's paid based upon the property tax, a portion of it. The ISO is included, but ISO is like $30,000 in
Something of that
total.
nature. Yeah.
So
But
the-
when you go up, it's not, every property tax that goes up is just not for the city of Collegedale. It's like Tri-Community and also the Hamilton County School Board as well.
So every time we have a tax increase, we're going to have an increase in the fire protection.
And it has been that way since day one.
Shouldn't that be like associated with population versus like what the amount is? Because we can still have 12,000 people next year or year after.
It's associated with property values, so if they go up.
That doesn't quite make sense.
So it's the assessor's values, the county assessment?
We just
I
have to
mean,
take it away.
it has to do with property values. Property tax, property values, the values of our properties.
Those are two very different things in a way, but
Yeah, I guess.
You would have
just trying
to get
understand.
Tri-Community and the city of Collegedale to sit down and see if there's an agreeable. I mean, we can't make that decision tonight.
Well, no, I just want to know how it increased 37% in 2 years. And that's a big chunk. And, I'm looking at the outliers and, when it went up 37%, it's like, nobody asked any questions last year about it because I was here and I didn't know anything about it. And now I do a little bit, just kind of looking at the numbers. So how can it go up $300,000 or so? 250,000 now, another 28,000 without like any discussion. It doesn't make sense to have a set rate if it's not based on the number of people here, because that's what they're going to provide service for. It's like based on the number of people that are here. So I would recommend that we look at that. Second question I have is concerning the general or other general government expenditures, the healthcare reimbursement arrangement or health reimbursement arrangement. It went up from 95 to 300,000, 216%.
The 95 was not very accurate. The 300 is based on what we are going to spend this year.
What is that number for?
Pardon?
Is that for healthcare or is that for?
It's the HRA account, health reimbursement account.
It's for healthcare insurance.
Right. It was an opportunity to be more accurate with the projection.
So that's a healthcare reimbursement account, or is it more, we pay that on the behalf of the employees?
It reimburses part of the deductible that the employee has to pay in a high deductible plan. It's a standard procedure.
But to go up 216%,
It was not calculated correctly in the years prior to this.
but you paid it.
We've always paid that, yes.
And we've had to adjust it at the end of the year on an amendment. So we're
Yeah.
trying to fix past problems and accurately project what we spend and not put down a number and then adjust it on an amendment at the end of the year like you've complained about before.
So are you saying that the last couple of years when it's been 95, it really been 200, 300, close to 300?
Yes, that's,
Yes.
That's correct. We've done an amendment for it in years past.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good idea to make it more accurate. I appreciate that. The public works salaries went up 26%, $200,000. Are we increasing the number of people that are working here to
Yes.
make that 200,000?
Yes, that is the annual raise, plus that is taking our part-time admin to full-time and adding a laborer.
So 2 positions and then increases in salaries.
But yeah, these are from now on. It's not, it'll be part of the budget as we go
Correct,
forward.
correct.
Does
The-
that also include the retention and so forth that was not there before?
Correct. All of the salaries are showing a percentage increase because in years past, the retention incentive was kept as a separate line item. And then we would have to do a journal entry to take it out and add it back into salaries. So starting this year and then going forward, we've rolled that into salaries directly to be a little more transparent.
So the other salaries that have gone up, 194,000 for administration, police department, gone up 190,000. Those are all partially the same, that you're saying?
Partially is the rolling of the retention incentive. Police department, we're requesting 2 additional officers this year. Administration, we're requesting a staff engineer, an IT professional, and the retired city manager's salary is shown in that number.
In the reserve, yeah. And that's the 62,000 shown in there.
Off the top of my head.
So the fund balance transfer from fund balance for $1 million.
Mhm.
Why, I guess anybody, why is that needed?
That's to cover the capital projects proposed in the upcoming budget. So that would be the sidewalk greenway extension project, 2 police cars, the retired city manager's incentive, a garbage truck, and the power washing trailer. So,
It should all be listed in the budget that's on the
Yeah, it
Yeah,
website.
I've seen it. so looking
yeah,
at
I'm
it.
rattling off what I
Yeah,
can.
yeah, you're doing a good job of that, by the way. So I guess I don't take this in the wrong way. It's just that I love this community and I want to ask questions so I can invite other people to this community as well. But it going to $1.8 million, the change from last year to this year,
Mhm.
that means it's a continuous $1.8 million every year, from where we're at now. So I'm always concerned about where are we going to get the revenues for that if our population base is not growing.
So last year, due to COVID, we conservatively and correctly made a significant reduction in the budget to hedge because we weren't sure what would happen to sales tax receipts because of COVID. So this increase is not as significant as it is shown, but it also does include a fair amount of capital projects that are one-off.
Now, is there a possibility that some of these you guys could say, can we wait till next year or put them off, or are these all have to be done now?
Well, for example, the garbage truck, we've had issues out. It's about outlived its useful life. So it needs to come out of service and it needs to be replaced.
What is it?
The garbage truck,
Okay,
as an example.
so 240,000 for that has to happen now?
It needs to happen now.
Okay, what about like?
And we
The
also-
problem is when it goes out of service, we have to put people on the back of a garbage truck, which is totally not safe. I would not want to do it, and I don't want our public works people standing on the back and picking up trash on the side of the road because drivers today do not pay attention.
I'm just trying to give you guys a opportunity to listen to what Mr. Garver said, Commissioner Garver. There are some would likes and then some have tos, and $1.8 million is a big chunk of change. And as you guys told me, the balance that we have has grown from 5 to 8 million. Would you, once again, choose to not approve the budget, work with the budget, see where we can meet in the middle ground, and be moderate about the changes? I talked to you guys last year or 2 years ago about the budget, about the 39 cents, 31% increase, try to beg you guys to meet us halfway. Mr. Tim made the recommendation to entertain that, and only one person agreed to that, which was not Mr. Tim. So I begged you guys last time. Ted Rogers told us, CC looked at us, he was sitting right over there and looked at us and said, I only wanted 29 cents. He says, you guys wanted 39 cents. So 2 years ago,
31 we went up.
excuse me,
I think it was 31 cents we went up, not 39, was it?
39 cents, 31%.
39.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it was another figure that was mentioned in our workshop.
So it went from 124.9 to 165. So the concern 2 years ago was I was trying to see if we can come to a middle ground. He threw you guys under the bus and said, hey, it was you guys, not him. He only wanted 28 cents, 29 cents. So now you've already moved it, farther than that, so you don't have to keep increasing the tax rate. Would you consider paying off the debt? And would you consider promising the people that are here and the people that you guys are representing that you would not increase in 2 months the tax rate back up to 165? I mean, can we come to a middle ground? Can we reason together and be able to make this community a place where we're not ashamed of the community? We still don't know what happened with the police situation a year ago, 2 years ago, and it just kept on getting worse and worse. And we still haven't that hasn't been resolved here. So I'm just asking you, can we come to a middle ground? And I ask you the questions, but nobody really answers.
Well, I don't know that we know what the certified tax rate is at the moment, so how can we vote on it or commit to it?
Well, when you're making the budget and you're making the budget increasing by 1.8 million, we're basically saying we will need more money and it has to come from somewhere. Therefore, it's highly probable that the tax rate will increase for sure because we have to cover what we're increasing.
I think you're making speculation what it's going to do, and we don't know it yet.
All right. Well,
That discussion will come up when we know what our tax rate will be coming out.
but it's a
Tax
setup.
office, that's what we
We pay
indicated to you before.
cash for capital projects for the most part.
Mhm.
We've been doing that for years.
Okay, so let me just go back.
So what is your capital that you want us to pay off?
The 3.5 million that you have on the bond that was reduced last year from 3.95% to 1.9 something percent per year. It's $400,000 a year that can be removed from the budget if you pay it off. And it's a continuous every year you pay about that much till it's paid off.
But
I
if
just want us
if
to-
we have a major expense in the city,
Mhm.
that is cheap money for us. Nobody else can go out and get that low of an interest rate. So it's good business decision
It is for
not
a
to
point.
pay it off.
Well, it is for a point, to a point. The point is that you have the money. A year ago, you had 5 million. Now you have 8 million. So you have 3 million more than when we talked last time about this. You
Can
do that.
we conclude this a little bit? So if there
Thank
might be
you.
someone else would like to
Thank you so
speak.
much for entertaining my questions, and thank you again for answering.
Thank you for sharing with us. Is there anyone else? Tell us your name and your address.
I'm John Green, and my address is 4201 Stratton Lane in Collegedale. Right. I've become interested in the budget here because several years ago, I was surprised when I opened my tax bill and it had jumped such a big amount. And so I haven't studied it thoroughly, but I had a couple of questions here that I wanted to ask. And the first one comes from my background as a realtor. Upon what basis is the appraisal of our properties made? Is it made on the market, the current market, or how is it made?
That's a state mandated process.
It's done
Through national.
it's done basically by comparable sales, sir.
By comparable sales?
Yes, sir.
Through Hamilton County, they do it for
The
us.
Hamilton County Tax Assessor's Office assesses every property in the county every 4 years, and it's my understanding they use a comparable sales basis.
I see. I'm glad to hear that. My second question was raised when, as a realtor, I tried to help my clients to lower their taxes. And finally, after going a few years to this tax assessor, I asked him, I said, now, how do you miss these values so far? He said, well, here's what we have to do. The budget is handed down to us, and then we parcel it out as fitting the different properties. And I'm concerned that, for example, if in 2 years, if the property values dropped, would our property values drop? Would they remain the same? Or because a 2-year appraisal is ready to be done again, will they go up again? Seems like government programs, they go up, but they don't come down. And that's what I'm beginning to think is a problem here, that the market is not being followed. As I told you now, the last couple of years have been good in the market, but it may be getting a little worse from following the economic lumber going so high, and now then houses are so high that things are dropping off now.
So a prime example, you may want to talk to Mark Gravitt's office. Is it Mark Gravitt?
Marty Haynes.
Marty Haynes, excuse me. They can talk all about how the property value and the assessments done. I think Mark was here, but I was thinking
That was for
Marty.
James.
That was Marty that was brought.
So you don't do your own assessment here?
No, Hamilton County does it all for everybody. Saudi Daisy, Hickson, Ooltewah, any city.
I see. I'm glad to know that.
We have absolutely no control over that. They have a state law mandated process that they're supposed to follow, and they report to us what the outcome is, and we act on it. We don't have any way to participate in that process.
I see. Okay, well, I appreciate that. So I hope that I won't be surprised again when I open my tax bill.
I think
after
we all
this
will
new
be.
budget. What's that?
We all hope we're not surprised.
Yeah,
I would say that if you look at where city of Collegedale is in a tax rate,
yes,
we're middle of the road. We're not the
Really?
highest and we're not the lowest.
really.
So, I mean, that's not a good thing to say, but it
I
does
think
give
that's a
me
very good
hope.
thing to say.
It's a good thing for me because my kids want to live here, and we've raised our kids here. But
Right. Uh-huh.
it feels like it's expensive. I didn't appreciate mine going up, but it did go up, unfortunately. So
Right. Okay, very good.
Now, when you see, they frequently publish in the paper what the tax rates are for each of the cities in Hamilton County, and we hit right about about the third or fourth from the top, about in the middle, close to the middle.
Third and fourth from the top down.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see. Okay, well, the third question that I have has to do with the construction of the budget. Is the goal to keep it as low as possible, or does most of the wish lists that come in, do they get added to it?
We'll let the
In
city
other
manager
words,
answer that.
Is there any year that it actually has dropped the budget or been somewhat reduced?
We actually reduced paving this year over last year. So we look at the needs of the city and try to optimize where we spend money based on the condition and the projects that are needed. Some years we need more police cars than others, and some years we need garbage trucks, and some years we don't.
I see. I was looking this over and I noticed that on one of these, the incentives were dropped out entirely.
They were added into the normal salary levels. Instead of having that as a separate line item, it's put in with the salaries now.
Put it in the salaries.
Yeah, I think our
Right.
auditors had
Yeah.
requested it be combined in with the salaries.
Rather than
have.
it being a separate section of the budget.
And the police equipment, is that, for example, do all the officers have the bulletproof vests?
Yes, and have for
Yes.
years.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Pleased to hear
And
that.
I believe they all have cameras?
Cameras.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you so much and appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Seeing no one else, I'll close the public hearing and go back to our commission meeting. So our first item of business is the second reading of ordinance 1093. Would you remind us of the caption again, please?
An ordinance of the City of Collegedale, Tennessee, revising rates for sewer service.
Any questions or comments about the sewer, this ordinance?
Hey,
from our
Mayor,
commission?
Since I was not here when you did roll call, can the record reflect that I am?
Yes, let's reflect that Vice Mayor Johnson finally arrived.
I like the word
It's fun to
final.
give him a hard time once in a while.
That rain was terrible.
Yeah. Okay, any comments or questions about ordinance 1093 in regard to the revised sewer rates?
Could they be explained again what the revised rates are at this time?
So we're revising the rates to adjust the way that the minimum is calculated to match Chattanooga and WWTA and to reflect the additional cost that Eastside Utility District is charging to do the billing for us, which is still an absolute steal compared to what it would cost to do in-house. And then we are raising the rates to match Chattanooga's, which will remain about 20% under WWTA. And so for anyone in here that is a WWTA customer, such as Greenbrier residents, this does not affect you. What WWTA does with their rates, we don't have a say-so in either. So just for your information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
So how much is the rate going up
$1 and some change,
per
1,000 gallons.
1,000? Okay. Seems like something we want to have happen, so I move to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for the second reading of ordinance 1093. Roll call.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Our second item is the second reading of ordinance 1094. Will you remind us of that caption?
An ordinance of the City of Collegedale, Tennessee, amending the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget.
Any comments or questions regarding to our budget ordinance?
This is the amendment from
Mhm.
2021. I move to
Right.
approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass the ordinance 1094. Roll call.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Our third item is ordinance 1095, and this is our regular budget for next year, correct?
It is.
The 21-22 budget?
Correct.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this?
So in response to my feeling about this whole process, which I very much support, I'm still curious if we've found a place to put some surplus, or does our new budget, I know it has expenditures and it has income, and there is a variance there. So if there's a variance there of almost $100,000, why don't we budget for that? That's my question.
Could you clarify your question a little bit?
Yeah, am I correct in saying that there is a difference between how much we're planning on spending and how much we're planning on getting in, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So according to the budget that I saw, we were going to get in more than we were going to spend, right? I think that's what I saw.
We are transferring $1 million from fund balance, which then yields an overage of approximately 100,000.
So that's already for next year we're doing that?
That's the proposal.
And your budget projections are conservative based on what we actually receive in
Correct.
Yes.
to be safe to adjust for the market, as showed last year with the major increase of revenue.
What's our overage from last year? Isn't it?
It's at least 2 million. We don't have it all in yet, but at least 2 million.
So is that $1 million coming from our reserves?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
I would add, it'd sure be nice to see if we couldn't, and I know what's going on with this whole process, but it really would be nice if we'd be able to spend the money that we have coming in and survive on that. But I mean, I see where it's going, so I like to think of this as taking care of the city's money like my own. And I think that's what people vote for us to do. So,
But a lot of the
I
overages
understand.
for the amendment is because unexpected expenditures hit
right.
us. I mean, there's no way to budget for that.
But
We do
that's-
have money to cover that, like the $1 million, so.
but this is for next year that we're talking now, not last year.
No, the
Last year, I
the 2
understand
million
that.
was for last year.
Yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that. We spent that and we needed to going forward. So,
I appreciate the honesty of administration to put money where it actually is and give accurate projections instead of giving a false budget that looks like it's lower to make it more appeasable. This is a very accurate and probably a normal trajectory of spending, but just on the front end is honest instead of on the budget amendments that we get a $2 million overage. A lot of this is being fixed in this current budget. So I appreciate the honesty there. I appreciate the investment into the greenway system, the first investment into the greenway system, but the major greenway system that we've had since I was in middle school. I think I was in 5th grade, probably the last time we expanded or did anything with the greenway. And I appreciate the fact that our city staff is going to be paid at market values and not underpaid. And finally, given their raises, the cost of living raises that they were due the last 2 years. So I appreciate that on staff side. Sam, to your points, I heard you saying that we're the second. Yeah, I looked at the rate. We're below Chattanooga Ridgeside Lookout Signal, right at the middle there with 4 cities below us. I do not plan to vote for an increase on, I vote to lower the rate to whatever the state gives us, which is not a tax rate. I believe that if we're going to do a tax increase, we should say it, that this is a tax increase and defend why we need a tax increase, not do any kind of smoke and mirrors of adjusting with that a reduction of the rate or however increase. We don't know what it's going to do. That's the reason why it's kind of hard to understand what it's going to look like. But I pledge to you that I won't vote to raise it, but I will vote to sustain the current rate so that there is not a tax increase on the people of Collegedale. I do not see that this budget is going to increase spending to require a tax increase. I've talked with Wayne quite a bit the last few weeks to make sure that that's not the case. This is one-time spending, $450,000 for the Greenway that's coming out of the fund balance. That's a large one-time expense. The 200-something thousand for a garbage truck, one-time expense. So I feel very comfortable with this as being a conservative budget, not just tax and spend. I think it's adjusting for some of the problems that we've had over the last few years. With that, I move to approve the budget.
We have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
I thought we already done it, so I'll second it, but
no, now you can, now's the time to
You
talk.
can
I'll
still,
second.
you can still discuss. If
You can still
wish to.
discuss.
We need to.
I I agree that until we see it, I'm leaning towards Commissioner White not to increase the certified tax, so it would look like a tax increase to us. So I agree with that. I'm not committing to it until we actually see it in the hands. So as far as I know, and talking with Wayne as well, we should be fine where we are today.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker? Yay. Commissioner Garber?
No.
Commissioner White?
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson?
Yay.
Mayor Lamb?
Yay. Our fourth one is the second reading in public, the second reading for ordinance 1096. And would you remind us of that caption, please?
An ordinance of the City of Collegedale, Tennessee, to provide for the general revenue thereof for the fiscal year 2021-2022 on an interim basis spent pending receipt of the certified rate from the Assessor of Property of Hamilton County, Tennessee, pursuant to TCA Section 67-5-1701, to be known as a general revenue ordinance for said year.
I have a question for our attorney on this. When does this actually have to be passed? Could this one particular ordinance be delayed until we know what our tax rate will be from the tax assessor?
Yes, ma'am, it can.
So we could postpone this until later?
Yes, you can.
Okay,
As long as, really the thing that you have to have established by June 30th is the budget.
okay. So the tax rate could wait.
The tax rate can wait, as long as you have it adopted by, around the 1st of September, something like that, just so that they can send the tax bills out. October 1st is when they do it.
Okay,
So for clarification, Sam, when we get the new rate from the state, we still have to adopt the new rate and vote on it.
Yes,
yes.
This can't be carried through and smoke and mirrors and say, if we approve it tonight, that it's still going to be $1.65 no matter what the assessed value is in the future.
correct.
The state requires us to match their new rate and then decide what we do after
You
that.
can't have a stealth tax rise.
Right.
In other words, if your rate's $1 per 100 and the property values go up 30%, then you're not getting a 30% increase by leaving it the same. It's got to be adjusted down. You have to take actual action to make it a 30%.
The reason I ask the question is I would like to suggest for us to consider not voting on this tonight and wait until we get the tax. I understand it usually comes in August. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then we could take our vote then to where we would know exactly what we're going to be voting on rather than adjusting it later and having to come back to it. So I'm throwing that out for discussion.
Has a motion been made to adopt it yet?
No.
Then if you want to do that, just make a motion to defer it until the next meeting after the tax rate is received, and you can defer it.
Okay.
That would be my motion.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, we have a motion to defer ordinance 1096 until we have received the rate from the tax assessor's office. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Garber?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson?
Yay.
Mayor Lamb?
Yay. That concludes our unfinished business. Now we can move to our new business. And the first item is the first reading of ordinance 1097. Would you read that caption, please?
An ordinance to amend the official zoning map to rezone property on Watkins Street from R2, low-density single and two-family, to MUBC, mixed-use business center, with conditions herein described as Hamilton County Tax Parcel 132P H027, said area being located within the corporate limits of the city of Collegedale, Tennessee.
Okay. We're going to have an explanation on this.
Okay, this is zoning case 2021-02. This case was actually in front of you guys in 2018. This rezoning, as Christy said, is in rezoning from R2 low density 1 and 2 family residential to mixed use business center MUBC. The property is located on 5450 Watkins Street, which is just south of the railroad, across the street from the industrially zoned SurfPro building, the new development that we have going up. In 2018, the Planning Commission recommended an approval. You guys heard it in a first reading, which you approved. And then the applicant withdrew at his own wish. So this is why this never went anywhere. We pretty much keep the same conditions as in 2018, which includes landscape buffers. We are also including a max building height of 35 feet, which matches the scale of the surrounding development. There are a few uses that are prohibited. These pretty much stayed the same. I did want to mention that in the resolution that you have in front of you guys, there is a small amendment that wasn't carried. Under point 4A in your resolution, it should actually say self-storage and mini warehouses. Your version only says mini warehouses, so we'll have to amend that for the second reading.
Okay. Any questions for her? Any comments?
And this is just the first reading to get us to the public hearing.
This is
correct?
just the first reading,
Okay.
yes,
The public hearing will be July 6th.
correct.
Should we vote on this?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the first reading of ordinance 1097. Roll call.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Our next item is the first reading on ordinance 1098. Would you read the caption for that one, please?
An ordinance to amend the official zoning map to rezone property on Appleton Pike from AG agricultural to R2 low-density single and two-family, with conditions included herein described as Hamilton County Tax Parcel 151EA002, said area being located within the corporate limits of the city of Collegedale, Tennessee.
Okay.
So this is zoning case 2021-03. As Christy stated, it involves a rezoning from agriculturally zoned property to R2, which is low density, single and two family. The case was brought to us because the property owner would like to split the land into two lots. There is currently an existing home on proposed lot 1, which would meet the minimum lot sizes under the new zoning, but not under the current zoning, agriculture. Under agricultural zoning, the minimum lot size on public water and septic is 1 acre. The subject property in its entirety is about 1.96 acres, so he's 0.04 acres short of actually doing a land split by right. He is proposing to split it in two, to have one lot with the existing home and a new lot to build a duplex. Such a proposal has to go through Hamilton County groundwater protection since it's on septic. So they look at the land and see how it perks. According to Hamilton County groundwater protection, he could build a 6-bedroom building on it. They do not distinguish between the number of units, they just give you the bedrooms. So he could build a single family home of that size, but he could also build a duplex with 3-bedroom units. He could split up further in a triplex, which would not work under R2. But yeah, he's requesting a rezoning to R2 to make the lot sizes work.
Can I ask a question? This is the lot, is it going to open up onto Appleton Pike?
Yes, the
Okay.
entrance is going to be on Appleton Pike. The intention is to have a shared driveway, which has to be brought up to standard. Staff has actually recommended approval of this due to the surrounding uses. There are some R2 uses in that area, and R2 is still considered low density. This property would meet the same density that would be appropriate in R1 or agriculture. The Planning Commission made a recommendation to deny this request after hearing public input.
Okay. I make a motion, we accept.
Second.
I have a question.
Sure.
When I look at this, I'm wondering, is this considered spot zoning? Because it is, when I look at the map, here is a cluster of R2. And then there's all agriculture all around, except across the street over on another, across Appleton Pike on another area. And it just seemed like to me that I just wanted to make sure it didn't
I
fall
understand.
into spot zoning.
So spot zoning usually only applies when you're upzoning to a more open use, like a commercial use, that is not predominant in the area yet. So you kind of distinguish between the zoning and the use. So although there is agricultural zoning in that area, it's all a residential use. There is no agricultural practice in that area. And the R2 has been there. I know that that was rezoned in the mid-90s, I believe.
93.
Yeah, to make those duplexes work there. It's an extension of an existing zone. It's not a spot zone.
Okay.
And I'd like to make a comment too, that the reason I'm saying to approve of it, I went and walked it around it, and I went up through all the areas and where the duplexes and everything are. And I think it's reasonable to approve this based upon what I have seen and observed and walked and checked out
Yeah.
myself.
I do need to make a small clarification. The Planning Commission moved to or recommends a denial. However, the motion was to potentially approve this with a landscape buffer towards the properties on Silver Lane.
The border.
Yes.
And that property does have a nice border of buffer
Yeah.
of woods.
So next to the existing home, it doesn't, because that's where the septic field is. You can't have landscaping there. Also, the TDOT road widening has removed a lot of trees towards Epperson Pike to make the right-of-way work. However, there is an existing landscape buffer, I would say about 30, 35 feet on that newly proposed lot, which would hold the duplex in the rear of that existing building.
Okay, so let me may I make an amendment that because of the buffer, I would like to add that the buffer has to be there. Now, is my understanding that because of TDOT, I know they have an easement and so forth, but it's their responsibility to replace certain things. Am I correct?
They're going to put in a sidewalk. I'm not sure what they're doing. They're going to replace the drainage.
Yeah, that's
there.
what I was concerned about, the
Are they
drainage.
replacing landscaping?
No.
No.
Okay, but the drainage they're taking care of.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, as with every project.
Okay, so,
The 25-foot buffer that was proposed in the Planning Commission may not be ultimately practical, depending on what land needs to be disturbed to build the home. Right now, the side setback for an R2 would be 10 feet. The preliminary outline of the plan for that Lot 2 shows about a 30-foot side setback, so there could be some landscape buffer. We need to be specific
okay,
so that we can enforce it.
okay. So how do I need to word that?
Any additional comments?
Yeah, I do. I believe Collegedale does a great job of managing growth. I think it's one of the things that's very appealing to most of the people who have chosen to live here. I do think there are times, though, when we need to balance that with protecting our citizens who actually use this property next to it and will be affected directly and indirectly. The water that will run off of this property will go right down a big ditch that the property owners have to maintain to keep the water going down the hill. And with the proposal that was made of 25 feet, which she seemed to want to add to this as well.
Yeah.
It'll create a situation where Brother Kim will have some challenges. He can build a one dwelling house without even talking to anybody here tonight, correct?
He cannot split the land
No.
under the current zoning.
Right, but he could build a one dwelling home without it?
He cannot split the land. He is 0.04 acres
Okay.
short of splitting the land by right under state law,
So he could have one house on that piece of
which
property.
is the existing house right now. So
he has
we,
one, right.
we usually permit one dwelling unit per lot. So right now he has one lot with one existing building. He has to split it to build another building.
So you'd ask us to rationalize the fact that it's okay to not go by the process that is laid out for us. that it's just minimal enough to where it really doesn't make a big deal, is what I actually heard you say a while ago.
I did not say that.
Well, it didn't meet the standard that's required. But
It
you're
does
still
not meet the standard right now. Under different zoning, he could
Right.
actually split it up further than those two lots.
correct, but one of them still wouldn't meet the zoning plan.
In
If he
its current
splits it.
form, it does not.
Correct, okay.
May I ask a question to her to redirect? And I have not been told anything by the landowner pertaining to what I'm about to ask you, okay? But just doing some of the research that I was looking at and all, I think a lot, because if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, because I read it wrong, that when TDOT, they had an easement and they purchased and they were going to do the drainage and so forth. Isn't there some type of what's what I'm looking for, an article or something that states that he can apply for a variance, and then if it's not approved based upon something that TDOT has done, the city could be held liable?
No,
No?
no.
Okay, what is that exactly that I'm thinking of then?
Well, I mean, we can only be held liable for not granting a variance, a lot line variance, if we act arbitrarily and capriciously.
Okay,
Okay.
that might have been what I
Which
was,
means, or illegally. And, there are reasons for lot line restrictions.
right.
So emergency vehicles can get in and that sort of thing. So, and even if there was a lawsuit to challenge that, it would just be that the court would set aside your decision and grant the variance. So there's not quote liability.
Okay, I think that's probably what I read. I was just misunderstanding it. But then also I'm understanding if it stays agricultural the way it is, he has a right. There was nobody around that area that I saw, unless they had them hid somewhere. He could put in pigs or any type of farm he wants to, agriculture, and there's nothing that
He
can be
can.
done.
That
So
is
then you would have-
activity protected under state law.
Right.
We have no influence
So
on that.
I'm looking at what would be the most feasible and I'm trying to look at a balance here, like Commissioner Garver was saying. Okay, you're talking about, and even if you built the duplex, from what I gather and what I looked at when I looked at the specs, there's a buffer there.
Correct.
It should not impact that area to have a duplex there on the lot behind it that he's talking about. Yes, he could build a 6-bedroom home, and he would still not be able probably to see the roof from the other. I think the one that's most effective would probably be the first lot on Silver Lane, but then they have wooded area too behind them.
So under R2 zoning, there's actually a 2-story limit. Initially, if you wanted to go higher, you would have to have a wider setback. And I don't think with the shape of the property that would actually be doable.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was
he's
looking at.
very
there.
likely, just by the site constraints, constrained to those 2 stories.
And then, but our plan, not the planning commission, but our city developers and planners and things, they recommended that this would be a good thing to do as they approved that it was all right to do this. It would make.
So planning staff recommended approval based on the site conditions,
Yeah.
the land use plan that the city has in place, and the extension of an existing zone. The planning commission voted to recommend a denial to you guys.
Why were they denying it? If our people, the staff that are in the profession and that we hired because they know what they're doing, why did the planning commission, did they give a reason to why they denied it?
They did not give a reason.
And they have a right not to, but it would just seem to me that there would be a reason as to why they did not want to honor this man's request.
I actually had the same question because I listened to the hour-long planning session twice.
Yes.
And I really, outside of the people's concerns that I heard that got and spoke, one was water runoff. Well, it runs on Mr. Kim's, not their property.
Correct.
So
And then it is going to
I
be
think
drainage
that
from TDOT. It's going to take care of that.
properly landscaped and the buffer and stuff will take care of that with the stuff. Septic under the driveway was one concern I heard. Another one was the single versus duplex, wide duplex. Well, I understand that Mr. Kim, for example, he goes through and he gets credit references on everybody that he rents to. And for an application, for an opening of one duplex, he may get 60 applications. that tells me there's a need in our community for residents, for people to live. So I can definitely appreciate Mr. Kim for what he's trying to do. And I agree with the buffer area. I honestly think that we need to have some type of buffer, and we did it up here at Integra.
Yeah.
That was part of the
The
commitment
agreement.
that was made. But I know Phil made a comment sorry, Phil, you made two comments. Protect the interest of the citizens. Well, you didn't listen to Greenbrier. You talked about the 96 garbage cans. This is, 12, 15 homes, but people still have a right to do stuff with their property. And if it's 0.04 acres short or whatever it is, I don't see why it's a big concern. I think it's going to be a nice property. If you look at, I guess, if you go by what all the rules are, let's talk about students renting from everybody on the university, students renting 3 houses in my neighborhood. We don't kick them out. We just kind of go along with it and we try to monitor it. And I think that's what we'll do with Mr. Kim as well.
So as a real estate professional, I show properties to people moving here from all over the country, Phoenix, California, Northeast. One comment I always get is, or one observation that I get is how diverse our property types are. As you're driving through, you may have farmland next to a subdivision. You may have a mobile home park next to a subdivision. You may have a mobile home in front of a $2-3 million mansion. Tennesseans, as my dad, who's in real estate, also jokes, when we all get to heaven, we're all going to live next to each other anyway. So here, the properties being next to each other don't harm property values. What does harm property values would be a pig farm or some kind of a commercial spot zone like the mayor was saying here.
Yeah.
As a real estate agent, it's also important that we respect people's property rights, the rights of the property owner to do what is legal under the law for their property. But we also have that as elected officials to walk that thin line, as Commissioner Garver said, to also protect the interest of everyone. In this case, since the property around it literally touches other duplex properties on the back right side, it's not spot zoning. It has R2 next to it. And talking to Mr. Kim, he plans to have a very nice area there. And there are housing shortages and people need to have access to housing. So I am in support of the change because, one, it's his right to do with what he wants to do with the land. And I think it will be an added asset to the community. And I don't think it does enough harm to the community around it, as some people may fear. I think those fears are misbased because literally people are building $1 million homes with mobile homes sitting in their front yard that may need TDEC to go out and inspect for damaging the land with all the trash that's sitting in their yard. So with that, I support it on a professional standpoint and also the job here that I have as a commissioner.
And I really do believe the word balance is still one of my key words with the way I think about everything. And when is it appropriate to listen to our citizens who will be driving up and down that road every day, who've lived there now for 25 years? They're the ones that know. Debbie, all due respect, you don't know how it's going to impact those people, even though sitting here around this table, we can speculate. And that's what we're here to do, I think. But to Tim's point about the park over here in Greenbrier, the property that enhanced, when I look at the community, it was a no-brainer, the value that it would bring to the community, this addition over here. And this is, property next to it. And so my friend, I found out our first names are the same, Phil. So Phil's can do his duplex, but
I still have not heard you articulate how it harms the community, though.
Or what?
I still haven't heard you articulate how it harms the community.
Well, the people who live next to it, that's the community that I see. The whole greater community, like you said, they probably won't be able to see the difference because off the road. as far as, 99% of the people in college.
But if you kind of look at it from
But I
that
do believe-
perspective, then you could say, well, the new plant from McKee's is going to add tons of traffic and that's going to harm.
Right.
I don't know if there's anybody from Silver Lane here. Oh, I see Preston. Good to see you, Mayor. You could say that's going to hurt the community because of all the traffic coming in, the noise and stuff. So I think you have to look at both sides of it. I honestly feel like Mr. Kim is going to have a good product for us. And I think that a lot of the duplexes that live in the city of Collegedale are pretty well maintained. And I think that if they're not, it's brought to the code's attention, it's quickly dealt with. I can tell you personally, I've dealt with one duplex with our building and zoning team, and it was quickly taken care of. So,
Have we had any issues with police being called out to the duplexes that are already there? Any type of high crime activity out in that area?
No, they asked that question last time, and
don't know.
it's not been a problem.
Any? Sir?
Right.
Okay, thank you. I think then, I mean, I can understand with the people that are living there and they've lived there for so long and and I understand that. I really do, because my mother lived in the same house for 55 years. But then there was some changes, industrial came in and so forth, and it was hard, but it didn't really impact the value of her house. Anyway, it kind of went up. But just looking at this thing, we could speculate on everything around, but just looking at what's here before us, okay? And this is what I'm basing my decision on, or my thoughts on. Where it's located, where the sidewalk's going to be, the questions that I think that were, and I did listen to the tape and watch the planning commission on that day. The drainage has been taken care of. A buffer is going to be there. It shouldn't impact the property value of the citizens, nor should it impact their quality of life, especially like whether for noise factor thing. I like the plant would be more, to me, would be more of a noise factor. But also that it makes me think that maybe they're just not wanting renters there. Is that a big issue? For some people that have rental property next to them or something? If there's not with
I
other
didn't hear
duplexes.
that at the commission.
No,
at
that's
the
coming out of
planning.
my mouth right now. I'm asking the
And I-
question.
And I didn't hear
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
comments coming from the citizens that lived on Silver Lane
Okay,
at the planning commission.
so everything that they asked was addressed appropriately, and there was answers, and the questions were answered, and they're going to be dealt with. Now, and if we're watching to make sure they're dealt with appropriately, like we do for everything in Collegedale, I don't have an issue. I don't see why there's a big don't build here. Okay? And I mean, I understand preserving the lifestyle that you're
Well,
wanting.
and I was going to point out, Bill Reed Road, all of those are townhouses. They are rentals.
Yeah,
They're being sold or on the market currently to be sold as a rental unit, at least 6 of them. Those haven't impacted the values of your property because it's literally in your backyard there. I think
but
we've
it's the
talked about.
quality.
Yeah,
It's the
and it's quality. And I
It
think
has a lot
Mr.
to do with the quality of the clientele, the quality of the house, and it appears to me it's going to be more selective. Or I would, because if you're going to invest that kind of money in building something, you're going to want to be able to take care of it. I've rented many times. My husband and I first started out, and he was transferred quite a bit. We rented in 5 different states. We left the place better than we found it, because we had to live there until we could purchase a home. So I fully do understand that, because it's a beautiful area up there on Silver. It's beautiful.
So that house has been there for many, many years.
Yeah.
With a circle driveway that he's going to
Correct.
build on.
Yes.
And I think right next to it, there used to be an old brick home or something like that I think is no longer there. So,
There's
There was
not-
something
yeah, there's
tore down
nothing on
about
that
15
side.
years ago.
yeah, it's definitely has improved the look over there. Unfortunately, his house is now wide open with the trees gone, so.
I moved the previous question.
Okay, a question's been called, so there'll be no further discussion.
Thank you, Kristen. Kirsten.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Are we
Commissioner
sure what we're
Baker?
voting for? After all this,
You made the
let's make
motion.
sure we're saying this right. I make a motion that we accept the
We
change
already have a
We've already-
motion and a second.
and then the amendment, that's what I'm
Your
saying.
your amendment didn't receive a second.
That's what I'm asking. I just want to make sure. it's
That
done.
was the buffer, right?
Right, buffer,
I'll second that.
yeah, the buffer.
Okay. Where am I?
Roll call.
Roll call.
And this
Are
is,
we ready now for the roll call?
can I say something just for the folks out here?
Yes,
This is the first reading. There will be another reading and a public hearing
July the 6th.
July 6th. So this does not close the door on this issue.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
No.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Our next item is approval of sewer easements.
These are the easements associated with the Force Main project. They went to Planning Commission with a recommendation to approve.
And these are where? Over by Little Debbie Parkway?
Correct. Well, it starts with the Wittenberg Farm, crosses under Little Debbie up through Buster Seiler's property, following the power lines over towards Appleton Pike.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second?
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Next is approval of sale of surplus vehicles.
So we have 5 more vehicles we'd request to surplus. Vehicle 402 is the airport's 2500 series GMC. Vehicle 146 is the police department's 2004 Ford Crown Vic. Vehicle 177 is the police department's 09 Dodge Charger. Vehicle 191 is the police department's 2013 Dodge Charger. And vehicle 104 is the police department's 2014 Ford Explorer.
Any questions or discussion?
So quick question. The other surplus that we've talked about,
Mhm.
including the motorcycles, have they gone to gov deals at this moment, or are we still
I believe the
waiting?
motorcycles are on gov deals currently. Public Works vehicles have already sold, and the airport vehicle previously sold already.
Which will go into the general fund and offset some of the new,
Correct.
okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay.
And just for your information, we'll be moving vehicle 183, which is a 2006 Charger for the airport to use until they're able to receive the truck that was approved. And we're moving vehicle 184, which is a 2007 Tahoe to codes, which will replace their Durango. And we will bring the Durango and the Charger to you in the future for surplusing.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is the employee manual update.
This is this year's revision of the employee manual. We wanted to bring it to the commission for formal adoption. It was emailed out to you to review.
You know, it's really hard without having to read every single word of that. If there's, you know, a lot of time when we do stuff in, Sam, you're familiar with this, is it called red line? Or
Track changes.
Yeah, or highlighting the change of some type. And it sounded good to me, but I couldn't tell truly what.
So we had an internal debate on that because the last version that came to the commission was about 4 years ago. And so there has been an annual revision ever since then. So we were afraid that track changes would not be as clear as we would want it to be. And that's why we did not.
So could we do track change after we approve it over, you know, year over year? Could we just do it from that point going forward until we, to me, I really couldn't tell what we added except for like the work at home piece of it and stuff like that.
Correct. We did that. We addressed, slightly reduced some of the vacation time accruals, some things of that nature. The manual was reviewed by both Sam and MTAS for best practices.
Oh, I don't doubt that. And I'm sure our HR person has done a great job on it as well, so.
She has been very involved.
As I read through it, I have just a question, an observation for page 30 to 31.
Okay.
The format, it appears that something that was under number 2 should be formatted just slightly different. So just take a look at that. So it's page, at the bottom of page 30 and the top of page 31. There's a paragraph there that appears to be, that should be under number 2. So just check that out. I did read it word for word. And that's the only thing I found.
You're a good woman. Way to go, Mayor.
I did read it for word too, and then I called and asked them to send me another copy to read. I'm okay with it, except there was 2 observations that I had that I wasn't really happy with. But one is just an observation that I like to see where it talks about part-time workers, but that's something I think needs to go in a workshop.
Mhm.
Okay. Another thing was concerning the policies about hiring. Okay. I know that it's normal general practice, even though it's not a law, and that it was recommended that if anyone, for example, works in the city of Collegedale, and I understand where they're coming from, that if you have a relative that's a commissioner, they can't be hired in any capacity because there'd be a conflict of interest. I would like to see that they couldn't be hired as a city manager, because commissioners don't do the hiring and firing of the general under all the other departments. We only hire and fire the city manager. And I think those of our younger people that would like to work in the city and don't have access because they have a relative that's either a commissioner or they can't do that, okay? And they don't fall directly in line underneath the commissioner. But I do understand where it's like if there might be a conflict of interest, if something would come up. I know that at one time we didn't have that in the city of Collegedale, but we did implement it several years ago because we did have an issue where a city manager and a commissioner, there was conflict, okay? And so I feel like it's kind of penalizing those in the future, because we would like for some of our young people to stay in the area, because commissioners aren't going to be reelected all the time, and to me, I look at that differently. I can understand we do have people that are related that work together, not so much together, but they do work in Collegedale, and there might be a spouse or a cousin or so forth. I don't feel like they need to work in the same department. I think that could be a conflict. In my profession, we do have people that are related to work together, but they're not in the same department. They're not under the same immediate supervision. And if one of them's absent for something, it's not going to require both of them to be absent. So, there's some play there. So I would really like to see that addressed. It's not in the articles to say that, yes, you must do this, but it is, I understand it, it's probably a recommendation that people think it's a good practice.
Nepotism, I wonder if we can get something from MTASC on what the standard is.
From my understanding, they were saying that there's not an article or anything that says it's a law, but they think it would be highly recommended. That's why it was not removed when the.
Correct.
Am I
MTAS
correct?
had a very, very strong recommendation to leave it in. The words of "not in 1,000 years" were used.
Mhm.
So because of that, that's why we didn't pull it out.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Did we have a motion?
I didn't make a motion.
Move to approve.
We have you, go ahead.
I said,
If you have a comment, go ahead.
no, ma'am.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Garber,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Reports from our city administration.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Commissioner White,
I pretty much said what I wanted to say at the budget time, so nothing tonight.
Commissioner Garber,
Yeah, a couple things. The lights look great. Very good job. Much more efficient is what I meant. June, maybe if you didn't know that, something that'll be fun for you to take advantage of for the next 10 days or so, 8 or 9. It's the Great Outdoors Month. So let's take advantage and promote that here in our community. The Great Outdoors Month. I'm sure our recreation people have already been doing that. So appreciate you y'all keeping that thing going for us. So, and that's all I have.
Commissioner Baker?
I just have one thing, please, I'd like to bring for, maybe add to the workshop. When I was on Parks and Recreation, we were working on possibly adding a piece of equipment to the Imagination Station back here. We worked on it for a couple of years. And that was a merry-go-round type thing that could be used not just for people with disabilities, but with parents, adults, and so forth. The Parks and Recreation, Rachel has been very good about the meeting with the Rotary Club, and they have offered $10,000 to go towards purchasing one. But the one that we're looking at is probably, it's going to be more for installation. It would probably run about $44,700 extra. So we're looking possibly to get more grants and things to do that. But I'd like to put on a workshop and have the workshop, we discuss the possibility of maybe doing a match to match or something so we can possibly get a playground merry-go-round equipment out here. That would be feasible. I'm not talking about one where they hang on and twirl around and fall off. You know, the kind that I grew up with and I actually loved and enjoyed breaking my brother's arm when I did it. I apologize for doing that, but he tormented me miserably. He was a lot older. I just didn't know he couldn't hold on as tight as I could. And so, but I would like to have, what we're looking at is, it's kind of like if you went to Disney World, it's like one of the teacup things. But you can have 6 to 8 people. They can roll up with a wheelchair, if they're on crutches, if they're an amputee. But it's also it's inclusive. It's for those children also and adults that do not have a disability. So they can enjoy being with together and you know, they can turn it, and each one of them would have the availability to contribute to making it spin and so forth. And it is encompassed so they can't fall out. There's safety factors there. But that includes the installation, which the company would come and do to make sure that everything is where it should be, safe-wise, and meets all standards. So I'd like for us to think about that and bring it before the workshop and see what we can do to implement it.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
I would agree with Debbie or Commissioner Baker. I think that, you know, we've got a lot of nice things in the community and the playground. I think the more we can do for people with disabilities, we should do it, whether it's an adult or more of a grown-up as well. I really do appreciate her desire and passion for that. So I'll pat her on the back, because not a lot of people will do stuff like that, to take that stance that she has. So I appreciate that. The second thing is, the budget, I have to look at the budget as a overall. I talked to Wayne many times over this budget period. There's a lot of things on salaries I don't agree with. There's a lot of things on police cars I didn't agree with. There are things that I felt like we could probably wait maybe a year on. So I have not been bashful with weighing on that. But in the overall grand scheme of things, I have to vote for the overall versus not just one specific item. So that's why I appreciate your saying this, just because I appreciate your time and letting me come up there and complain, and you listening and providing me with some input and stuff like that. Selling the vehicles that we've had and the motorcycles will go a long way in paying for some of this. So it's surprising how much money we can get from some of these auctions when we send it out, or bids. So I do appreciate your leadership on that. That's all I have.
Just want to remind everyone, on July the 1st is our fireworks and our freedom celebration over at the Commons, as well as at the Veterans Park. And we look forward to having all of our friends and citizens come and enjoy an evening with us and enjoy some family time. Also want to thank the interim police chief and our city manager and our human resources individual, working on the manuals that they have and updating them. That was shows a lot of work, and I do appreciate that being put up and bringing us up to date.
Speaking of the police, they did a great job with their rescue. They made the paper and different things, and you guys can be proud. Those gentlemen are part of our force and going to get recognized for their good job.
And also Sammy, I think he was for the crisis intervention. So yeah, both
Yeah.
episodes were great.
Yeah.
So
Sammy is very good. He came and helped get my husband to the hospital
good.
early
Yeah.
one morning, and he was so kind.
Yeah,
I
he
really
is.
did appreciate Sammy.
I moved to adjourn.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.